this kind of separate part of the organisation. We didn't just want a digital post, we didn't want a digital team, we wanted digital to be completely embedded within the whole of the organisation. So we've got a new 5-year strategy, and digital is just a key part of everything that we do in terms of service delivery, but in terms of also how we kind of run the organisation in the background. So at the same time as kind of coming to that kind of conclusion, we also did a governance review of our board, which identified that we really needed to shake things up a little bit. So we weren't a very diverse board at that time, and we certainly weren't a board of trustees who were digitally enabled or particularly positive about digital. So over the last couple of years, we've done quite a bit of trustee recruitment, really, to try and get some trustees with more digital expertise and enthusiasm on the board, but also at the same time to try and change the diversity of the board. And what we've tried to do is say that we need a board that's representative of the work that we do, the people that we serve, the communities that we work in, but also is ambitious for the kind of future that we want for the organisation. So we kind of started recruitment for trustees back in 2018, and we've done kind of 2 tranches of recruitment. The first tranche was around trying to fill some kind of skills gaps that we had. So we did a skills audit of our board, and we mapped out what we needed for the future. And digital was one of the things that was pretty high up. And we did a second lot of recruitment at the end of 2019, which was specifically around getting Black and minority ethnic trustees on board. But again, looking for people with a background in digital where possible. We're a charity of a turnover of just under 2 million, and really did have no budget at all for trustee recruitment. So the first thing for us was trying to work out how we could do trustee recruitment in a way that we got really great candidates, didn't spend any money. And to do that, we really just made massive use of social media. So we designed a trustee ad which was a bit more interesting and had some infographics on it and was quite brightly coloured, and tried to say what we wanted quite easily. And then we just kind of flooded social media with the ad, but also did some quite tailored recruitment through LinkedIn. So we joined specific LinkedIn groups and just promoted the option really well. And we were absolutely inundated with applications of a really high standard. We were kind of blown away really by how many people that we had apply. We were only actually looking to recruit 2 trustees in our most recent recruitment, but we actually ended up with 5, just because the candidates were so high that in such high quality that we didn't think we could turn them down. We needed a range of skills, and we didn't go out for a specific digital trustee because that would go against what we've said around the Charity Digital Code, and we wanted people who digital was one of the skills that they brought, but also some people had skills in marketing and communications, other people came with skills in HR or finance. So we definitely wanted a kind of mix of skills. So we managed to do all the kind of recruitment process just before lockdown started, and it was March where we had our trustees ready to start. So we then had to induct our trustees remotely, which has been a kind of interesting challenge, but really positive experience. So we ended up moving forward some of our digital plans that we had a bit quicker. So we've set up something called the fridge. So the plan being that if you're at home and you've got loads of printed information, you normally stick it on the fridge to have a look. So our remote fridge is now our trustee SharePoint site. So we've got a kind of depository where all our board packs go and all key information things go. So that launched in April, and that was really the key part of trustee induction. So we developed a kind of remote induction pack for people. Our vice chairs had kind of individual conversations, telephone calls with all of the new trustees. And we've done a huge amount through Zoom and through Microsoft Teams. So lots and lots of kind of chats about the organisation and getting to know people. We do a remote coffee and cake session every couple of weeks for all our staff and volunteers. So trustees have been able to join that through Zoom as a way of getting to know the organisation. And board meetings went on to Zoom in March. So the first one was a bit of a disaster as nobody could work out how to do it. And for those trustees who weren't digitally enabled, found it quite challenging. But now I think we're board meeting number 3 and we've kind of got it down to fine art, really. So I think for me, the impact of having trustees who understand digital, passionate about digital, has been really significant. We found that there's greater engagement between the board and the organisation, and a lot of that happens now much more informally. So we've got a number of board members who are really engaged on social media, and if you watch our Twitter feed at any time, you see a really lovely dialogue between trustees, members of staff, volunteers, that helps both parts of the organisation feel like they get to know each other a little bit better. So that's been really wonderful. The other real benefit for us about having trustees who are pro-digital on a board has meant that we've been able to move at speed. So I think if lockdown had hit before we had digital trustees, we would have really struggled, because I think our board would have been really worried about some of the risks of moving everything remote. But because we had trustees who understood what we were doing and were able to support and challenge and encourage and really get alongside other board members, the speed was a lot better. For us, and I'm sure this is the same for lots of charities now, but because of lockdown, digital is definitely becoming the new normal, in the same way working from home and balancing childcare and pets and everything else is. So has been doing stuff by Zoom and Teams and collaboratively, and having board as part of that has been really critical. So I definitely feel like board and the organisation are on the same page, which has been really helpful. The other thing for us has been the creation of new opportunities. So we are a Greater Manchester organisation at the moment, but are just starting to kind of spread our wings across the Northwest. And if I'd have been here 6 months ago, I would have been telling you about headaches I had about how did we deliver across the Northwest when we only have premises in Greater Manchester. But actually, because of digital, some of those barriers have gone. And again, because we've got trustees who understand that, we've been able to have much better open conversations about opportunities and risks, just because people are all speaking the same language. And I think my final thing about the impact is just that actually our board meetings are quite a bit more fun now. It's a much more energetic, collaborative experience, a lot less formal. We still do all the kind of organisational business and all the governance work that we need to do, but in a way that just feels like we're doing it together. So for us, I don't think I could recommend getting a digital trustee more. And if you're somebody who wants to be a digital trustee, then I'm sure there'll be loads of charities out there wanting to kind of bite your hand off. So that, I think that's my quick overview for now, but obviously happy to answer questions later on. Thank you.
Brill, thank you. Really good stuff. I have loads of questions, but I'll save it for the Q&A section. Who were we going to do next? Pauline, I think you were up next. Are you ready to go?
Yep. Can you see my screen okay?
Yeah, looking good.
Just checking. Okay, so I'm Pauline Roach, and I'm a trustee of the West Midlands, of several organisations, the West Midlands Funders Network and the West Midlands Open Data Forum, and I've been involved with the Funders Network since 2008, when I was CEO of a grant giving charity in Birmingham called Digital Trustee, and I've stayed on the board and gradually become more involved on the leadership team, and became the chair about 5 years ago, first vice chair and then chair. And it is a tiny organization. Our income is under 20,000. So I think when people think of a funders network, it must be very rich, but it's not, because funders, as most of you probably know, like to spend their money on beneficiaries, not on themselves. So there isn't a huge income. We have a contracted person who does secretarial work for us 2 days a week. And then, so a lot of the work, because it's such a small organization, a lot of the work falls to me as well as chair, with her, working with her. And the digital side of things has kind of evolved over the years, and as we became more active socially, I took on work around the social media and helping with the website. So my digital side of things is functional, operational to some extent, but I try to make sure that I'm not doing too much. So, and the same with the West Midlands Open Data Forum. I've been chairing that. I'm involved in it for about 6 years and chairing it for about 4. And it's not a charity, but it operates as an unincorporated volunteer organization. So I consider it a trustee type role. And that's slightly different in that people involved in the open data world obviously have the digital skills. And so our expectations of what we can do online were always a bit more advanced. So it's a matter of kind of keeping everybody on the same page. So people have different interests within data, and we try to make sure everybody stays involved. So as I've listed on the slide, my work with the forum and the network is a lot around communications, digital communications, helping to identify and contact speakers, including via social media. Over the years, I've been 30 years working in the not-for-profit sector, so I have huge networks, and been involved in LinkedIn and Twitter for, as you know, since the early 2000s. Sorry. So I rely on my networks to develop speakers. Hang on. Because I've been helpful to people over the years, they tend to respond well when I ask them to come and speak at my events. I engage lots through Twitter and the website, and with the Open Data Forum website particularly, we do sprints to keep the website up to date, because nobody has time. Again, a tiny organization, nobody has time to keep it up to date regularly. Since lockdown, I've been the one who's been steering video conferencing for both of these organizations, and just, you know, having somebody who's not fazed by technical stuff, and you know, knows at the very least that it's not, you're probably not going to break anything, gives security to other people who might get a bit flustered. A lot of my work is about asking questions and advising and translating, and kind of putting the questions that I get from my organizations out to my kind of digital networks. So I'm often posting questions on Slack groups I'm in, or in or WhatsApp groups I'm in, and getting people to respond and responding similarly to their questions. And the translation bit is about knowing that the language that we use in the digital world and in the not-for-profit world can be different, and it's about making, you know, doing that interpretation, translating business. I tweet and retweet from my Twitter accounts that I've given there, and so I'm in regular dialogue with people on these matters. I joined the Small Charities Coalition as a trustee in January last year, and when I was recruited, I was they obviously knew about my digital experience, and they asked me would I be the digital trustee, and I said I was happy to be recruited as a digital trustee, because I didn't think it was up to one person on the board to be pushing digital, because I knew from experience that it doesn't usually work if somebody has a passion for things. If they're the only one pushing it, it needs to be a collective work, and that is the way we worked on the SEC. So you know, it's gradual, and again, I try to remember I'm a trustee and not an operations manager, and so my advice is always given with, you know, well, here's what I would advise, but feel free to advice to the management is always feel free to you know, use or not use my advice. You know, they're doing the operations, they're on the front line, they know what's best. The key skills I would say are patience and passion. Working with small charities, their key asset, I'd say, is time, not money. and so things take some time to change. And so if you're not prepared to wait to kind of be in the long game, then it can be awkward. And I know that some people who have started as digital trustees with organizations give up after a certain amount of time, because they get frustrated with the amount of time it takes to change things. What I would advise is that it's great to bring your digital skills to the table, but you should also have a passion for the mission and the objects of the charity. So shop around, and if you want to share your digital skills, that's great, but shop around for a charity that also excites your passion about the issue, the social issue they're trying to address. Another key skill is about listening and asking open questions. I think it's all too easy for those of us who have some technical skills to jump into an organization and think that we can solve problems and sort things out very quickly. But a lot of the people who are sitting around the table have been there for some time and have some knowledge and skills. And I think it's good to listen a lot and ask questions, even if they seem silly, to try and find out why people do the things they do before coming in with suggestions. And I mean, I've been guilty of that myself. Why don't we do it like this? But I learned a lot from listening. And the final key skill I've listed there is networking and brokerage, because it's great to have big networks, as I do, but we need to exploit them for the benefit of the charity. So I often, even just with kind of a bit random sometimes on Twitter, I see people asking questions and I'm able to answer them from my networks or from my own knowledge. And I like to think of myself as a helpful person, and I try to share that knowledge with other people. I love the technology and I love the idea of technology, but I recognize that lots of small charities have not much money and a low level of digital skills. And so it's important to develop a plan for what you're going to do, achieve some goals, and then kind of go on to the next step. Okay, and just kind of finally, I'll finish off on kind of the changes since lockdown. In the Open Data Forum, we had a meeting today, and we've had meetings each of the last months, so May, June, July, where we just had an hour of a meeting compared to a usual 2-hour meeting, and a speaker, because people, I think, are a bit tired, and it's good to keep in touch and then have somebody to listen to and kind of learn something. And now we're having a break for August. And for the Funders Network, we met initially at the beginning of lockdown to kind of an emergency meeting to check what was happening. And now, as funders, they are busy dealing with their own organizations, and so myself and the secretary are kind of working behind the scenes. But we have been able to meet using Zoom with infrastructure organizations, which we didn't before. So it has benefited us in that way, that the geography at the moment is not being a problem. So people who might not have come to a meeting physically are able to join us on a Zoom call, and that's worked quite well. And with the Small Charities Coalition, we met early on for every week, and then on Zoom, and now we're meeting back to more or less our usual schedule, and then in between using WhatsApp for messages. And I saw somewhere else, somebody else suggested that you form, I think it was Ed Superior said, about WhatsApp, the good idea is to form small groups and have a discussion group, and then you can abandon that discussion once it's over, and that works well. And we found that works well as well. And I think that's about all I need to say for now. Thank you.
Thanks, Pauline. Any questions, Pauline? Pop them in the chat. We'll ask them in the Q&A section. Next up, Janet, are you ready to go?
I hope so. I've just managed to unmute myself. Let me see if I can share my screen. How's that go? Does that look good? Great. All right. Thanks for the thumbs up, Pauline. Yeah, so I'll kind of whistle through this. I've got millions of slides, but I'll skip over some of them because Michelle and Pauline have both made lots of the points really eloquently already. So I'm Janet, I'm the Chief Executive of Reach Volunteering. And a couple of years ago, at least, in fact, we launched a sort of program to encourage more boards to recruit digital trustees, because our service already helps charities recruit trustees. And having been through our own digital journey, we became keenly aware of how important it is to have a digital trustee. So that kind of gave us an impetus. So I'm going to cover, if I can advance these slides, very quickly, why have a digital trustee, what kind of role they play, how to find one, and then for those who are looking to become one, how to become one. So just a little bit of stepping back and look at the sector as a whole. This comes from the Charity Digital Skills Report 2020, which came out about a week ago, I think. So this is very hot off the press. Basically, over 2/3 of charities don't have enough digital skills on their board. There is either they say that either they're low or have room for improvement. So there's a really big need for more digital skills on boards around the sector. And over half don't have any kind of strategy for digital. So that doesn't just mean a sophisticated digital strategy, but even any kind of way of really embedding digital in their main strategy. At the same time, over 80% say they are either fair or poor at developing digital services or products. And about a quarter say that the lack of board buy-in is one of the biggest barriers for them to do things better, and particularly for them to do things strategically rather than tactically. And with coronavirus, obviously, everyone's made a rapid move, incredibly rapid progress to remote working and also delivering things online. But, you know, there's kind of at this point now, which is, what are you going to do strategically about that? You know, you've probably responded in a kind of emergency crisis situation. What are you going to do in the future? How are you going to align this with your strategy? What are you going to stop doing? What are you going to do more of? What are you going to invest in and improve in? And all of that is definitely something that the board really needs to engage with. So these are really points that Pauline made very well. What is, in almost exactly the same language, actually. That's kind of encouraging. I think we're on the same page. A digital trustee is not the digital trustee, which is really to say that they're not the only person responsible for digital on the board. It has to be the whole. Governance is a team sport, it's a collective decision making, and the whole board makes those decisions. And one person isn't responsible for one subject area. Just like a treasurer has not got the sole responsibility for the finance, they have maybe some depth of expertise that can help the board to think about it, but it's not their specific role. And a digital trustee is not meant to know everything about digital either. They will never do that. And then, oops, sorry. The other thing is they are not, and again, so similar to Paulie's, but they're not the digital team. You know, if you've got a project or a program or something you want to do digitally, you don't recruit a digital trustee to do it. And a lot of charities do fall into that gap. And I think a lot of digital trustees fall into that gap as well, because they're kind of by nature quite kind of doers. And so they're kind of keen to get stuck in, but that is not the role of trustees. So they need to, you know, a trustee is there to provide governance, oversight, depth of expertise, critical friend, but not to do the stuff. So if you need someone to do the stuff, go to, you know, Tech for Good community, or Reach Volunteer, or get a freelancer or an agency or whatever, but don't ask the trustee to do it. So what kind of moving on to more positive thing, what do you want them to do? And I think Michelle put this really beautifully, really. It's about seeing how you can achieve your strategy and what role digital can play in that, how it can help you do it faster, better, more compelling way or whatever, who really understands the opportunities of digital and also the risks, and knows, and, you know, because they've implemented this sort of stuff before, they'll understand the nature of the risk, but also the risk of not doing anything, because boards can get stuck on that. They can get really quite risk averse, and may not see the risk of not embracing digital. And they understand and trust the process. So I ran out of time, but I was going to put a nice picture of a card for this slide, because when we went through our own digital transformation, was basically taking our service online and making it self-service. And I've got a relatively digitally savvy board and a digital trustee, but my treasurer in particular was kind of like, when are we going to stop spending money on this? When is this done? You know, you kind of saw it as a car that you buy, and it's like, why do we keep on taking it back and trying to get new things fitted onto it, you know? But having a digital trustee explain, no, this is an ongoing thing. It's iterative. It will be there forever. We'll be forever investing in it. And that's how it should be. And having a trustee who can say that rather than chief exec is really useful. But I think they also do other things, even if you don't have any digital projects lined up. I think this is what our digital trustee brings to our board. And I think it's what digital trustees bring to boards in general. They're very user-centered in a way that charities might be surprised about, actually. They're really focused on defining what the problem is and getting under the skin of that and not jumping to solutions. They're outcome focused and very willing to change direction or pivot if the current strategy is not going to achieve the outcome you're after. They're data driven. They want to know what the evidence is, and visual, that's the wrong word. They bring clarity. So that's a great digital person will bring all of that, and that is useful on any board and really helps all board conversations, not just digital ones. So how do you find one of these brilliant people? So I think a lot of it's just about good trustee recruitment processes, and Michelle again has really eloquently described this. But it's being clear about what role you want them to play in and why you want them, and why you want them for as your organisation is now and where you're going, and what sort of qualities and experience you therefore need. It's also about being really clear about the time commitment, so that you're not setting anyone up to fail. People often undersell how much the time is in the hope that they can get someone in, and then everyone regrets it later. And develop a really good recruitment plan. Think about how you're going to do it. What's the process? How are you going to promote it? And most crucially, who's going to respond to the stuff you put out there? Because I think there's one thing that digital people, from my experience, expect quite a swift response. They expect a more social approach to recruitment. If you just hit them with a load of admin and forms and don't get back to them, you're probably going to lose them. So promote it via reach and your own networks, sharing communities like this one, the Tech for Good, put it on jobs boards like Charity Job, approach people directly. LinkedIn, well, actually I won't even carry on because Michelle really covered how she used things like LinkedIn, and that just sounded ideal. So yeah, do that. So we have got a sort of hub, an online hub called Digital Trustees, which has got guides and resources, and you can promote your vacancy there, and it's free unless if you're over £1 million turnover, there's a small fee of about £100, I think. I can't remember precisely, but it's small. But otherwise it's free, and you can promote it. We've got an online community of people who are interested in becoming digital trustees, and also all our roles are promoted through LinkedIn and other partners, so it'll have wider visibility. And you can also approach the people who are on our community who want, and directly say to them, you look brilliant, have a look at this role. And we've got, as I say, lots of resources there about kind of how to recruit and stuff like that. Oh, and keep them. I'm not going to say anything more about induction here because Michelle covered that really nicely. And actually, we've literally just published a blog on recruiting and inducting trustees remotely, in which our case study for induction was Talk, Listen, Change, because they've done such a phenomenal job of it. So please look at that. So finally, for those people who want to become trustees, first of all, who can become a trustee? Anyone can, pretty much. You have to be usually over the age of 18, and there's a few criteria like not discharged, bankrupt, or prohibited from being a director or something like that. There's a few legal ramifications, but generally speaking, anyone. So the question really is, what kind of people are boards looking for? And as we saw at the beginning, a lot of boards don't have enough digital expertise. So your skills are going to be in high demand. But generally speaking, what boards should be looking for is someone who's going to bring a valuable difference to the rest of the board. So it really does depend on who is already around the table and what they need. But undoubtedly, you will be needed by several boards. So, don't be shy, put yourself forward. You just need to find the right fit. And remember that you are not the digital trustee, so you do not have to know everything. And you have to know what you don't know, and maybe be willing to try and access that, but you definitely don't have to know everything. In terms of where you can look for roles, like I said, we've got a lot of trustee roles and some digital trustee roles on our site. We wish there were more, because we wish more boards were doing that, recruiting for digital trustees. You can also look on Charity Job. Akivo's got a jobs board. You can offer yourself up in, communities like this, for example, or even approach charities that you're really interested in directly, if that's, and they can only say no if they don't need another trustee at the moment, but it's always worth trying. There's a few things you should consider. It is a commitment. Well, first of all, it's a role which is about governance, and you have to think whether that's what you want to do. I think, like Pauline said, you need to be patient, and all sorts of things that you might not want to be doing when you're. So have a think about whether it is the kind of role for you. And if it is, make sure that you're joining the board of an organisation that you has an issue or cause that you really care about, because it is a commitment of several years, and it is a legal responsibility. Think about what kind of size organization, what culture, what structure, or bear that in mind as something that are issues. If you're not too familiar with all the different dimensions, at least pay attention to that, of the different kinds of organizations that you're approaching or looking at. And don't forget about the practicalities. What is the time commitment? Are they wanting you to join a subcommittee? When and where are the meetings? Those sorts of things. And then what's the rest of the board like? Because you are joining a team. Now, this might not be apparent until you get a little bit down the road with them. So it's a kind of journey of exploration. But, is this a team you want to join? Are they working in a dysfunctional way or a functional way? Can you see how you feel like you could fit in? What's the chair like? What's the CEO like? And then I think you should just double check that, for example, the legal structure, that they are incorporated. Again, I haven't got time to cover this, obviously, in this kind of thing, but there's guidance out there, and pay attention to that. You don't want to join a trust with the personal liabilities of something which is not incorporated are quite significant. Most charities are incorporated, so it's just worth double checking. And you may, you probably want to check what you're letting yourself in for in terms of the finances as well. Go to the Charity Commission website, you'll see sort of 3 years worth of accounts there, and you can find out a lot more there. Sort of do your due diligence. And again, we've got a kind of how to find the right trustee role blog on our website, so if you want to know more, have a look there. I'll stop there.
Brilliant, thank you. Again, I've now got a page full of questions ready for the Q&A section. So all good stuff. I will just share my screen again, because there are a couple of things now that you can do. You've got I think we're going to have about 10 minutes, so back at about 5 to. But there's 6 potential things that I could get you to do while we're on this little break. So the first thing is there's a Mentimeter that we've set up where we're just asking you what you might want to see from our future events. I can't be bothered thinking of something. So I want you to think of something for me. What would you like to see from our next event? So if you go to opening up a new browser, so anybody who's not used Mentimeter before, type in menti.com and type in that code when you're asked for it, and it's just going to ask you a question, and I'll start to get some answers to that during this next 10 minutes, which will be really helpful for me. So if you all want to have a go at that, that would be wonderfully helpful. The second thing you can do is, I'm just launching a little bit of a fun poll. So if you want to get involved with the poll, looking at fictional leaders, who's your favorite fictional leader? Just a bit of fun. I'm curious as to who people think the best leader is. So we've got that going on at the minute. Already starting to get some votes in, all looking good. Or you can take a 10-minute break. So pop your video off, go and have a break. Another thing you can do is think about what questions you might want to ask in the Q&A section, or if you want to do a community announcement as well. So you'll get 1 minute to talk about whatever you want. We can probably fit in about 3 of them maximum. So if you want to do a community announcement, have a think about that. That's up after the Q&A. And then finally, I can put you all in groups. So if everybody wants to maybe have a bit of a chat with people, these are just some ideas of potential questions you can all ask each other or have a chat about. So what I'll do is I'll open the breakout rooms now. You can join one, it's optional, or you don't have to join one. You can stay in the main room, go have a break, play with the polls, do a bit of a Mentimeter thing. So I'll open up the breakout rooms now. If you want to come back at about 5 to, that would be great. Okay, so have fun. I'll see you in 10 minutes. Hi, you've just joined on our break. 10 minutes, we're back in 10.
I think so.
We've got everyone back. I have no idea if that worked. I've never done that before. It was worth a go. Was it all right? Did you actually end up talking to people? Good. That was really weird. We're starting to see people. Everyone's just coming back in now. So I don't know if anyone can see the result. I didn't leave the poll up, so apparently putting you into rooms stopped the poll, so I didn't leave it up for very long, but 9 of you voted, so I'm going to take that as the answer, and I'll share the results for you. I'm pleased with that. You know, I mean, poor Captain Janeway didn't really get a look in, but Sarah Connor is pretty cool. I'm happy with those results. So thank you for doing that. It was fun. And I will share Mentimeter actually with you as well. You can continue to vote on this Mentimeter as we go through the session. So let me stop sharing that screen. I'll share my Mentimeter screen instead because we're seeing some interesting things here. So can you see that full screen? So we've got things around collaboration with others, digital tools, tech strategy, governance tools. So all good things in there. We'll have a look at how we can develop some of those into some events. Feel free to keep posting on Mentimeter. That's all good, and we'll continue for forever really. I don't know if it ever stops, so you can do that after the session as well if you want to. So now let's move on to Q&A. Who does anybody just want to start right off the bat? I've got some questions, so I'll start if no one else wants one. In fact, we can start with one from Michelle, which I thought was good. So Liz, you said Digital Trustees made your board meetings more interesting. Michelle, Liz said, how can you recommend some fun ways of making board meetings more fun?
More fun. I mean, they're not massively exciting, but I mean, the very first board meeting that we had when our new trustees came, we did a really simple check-in process where we tried to get everybody on Zoom to speak, so that, you know, because if you're kind of waiting in the wings to speak, it can get quite off-putting, you get quite nervous. So we did something about people just talking to us about their experience of lockdown. And as we're a relationships charity, it felt important that we took the time to kind of get to know the trustees in that way. And then as an organisation, we're kind of really committed to the idea of bringing your whole self to work. So, you know, not having kind of different parts of yourself or different kind of views that you show. So again, with kind of trustee meetings, we've done a bit about, you know, you just come as you are. So that means sometimes we've had babies on the screen, we've had pets, we've had people giving us tours of the houses. I think probably the best thing that we did is that the board really wanted to say thank you to all of the staff. And I don't know if people saw the toilet roll challenge that was kind of doing the rounds in. So if people are looking confused, so it's a challenge where you throw something in on one side of the screen, you catch something, and then you throw it off the other side of the screen. So it was done quite a few times in primary schools where people throwing on like a toilet roll and catching it and throwing it off. Well, our trustees did a video where they handed a thank you note round. So we had a basic thank you note, and one trustee handed it off onto the screen to somebody else, and we put all the videos together to get a thank you video that we shared with the rest of the organisation. And that was brilliant because you really understood trustees who really got it and were really up for kind of passing this note in a really fun environment, and people were doing it when they were out running or out walking the dog, and then other trustees who obviously found it absolutely excruciating and sent me 3 or 4 different versions of it for me to pick. But actually, I mean, they're just some of the little things that we've done. But yeah, they've just been really nice ways of kind of icebreakers, really, I guess.
Thanks. That's really fun, interesting. I do love a more interesting meeting. They can get really boring, can't they? There's probably a whole other event here on how to shake up the board structure. Like there's nothing to say that we have to have board meetings in the same old way. There might be more interesting ways of doing that. I feel like it's another event altogether. But something else I wrote down here was, Pauline, I wrote this down while you were talking, so I don't know if you want to answer this or everybody might have an opinion on this, but it sounds quite frustrating being a trustee, a digital trustee in some ways, in a lot of ways. And I think that's good to be realistic about it. So I really liked that you were honest about how it can be frustrating to get things through, and especially thinking about budget and whatnot. But there must be a benefit if I was to become a digital trustee, it's going to be really frustrating and difficult for me. It's going to take my time. I'm not paid for it. What are the benefits? Why should I become a digital trustee?
Well, I think I can answer that by sharing a story that I'm very proud of that happened recently to do with the Charity Commission, which, people think, well, it's our regulator, and we'd like it to be more efficient, we'd like it to share data better, etc. But it has its faults and kind of weaknesses and stuff, but it is powerful as well. And what happened was that we, in one of the charities I'm involved in, we lodged our accounts and end of the year return in January to meet the deadline. And in April, I was scanning the Charity Commission website, as you do, and I discovered that our accounts and stuff had not been received, or at least weren't recorded as being received. And I think in a lot of charities, the charity, the board would have just accepted that as an error, a trial, and left it. But because I know stuff about digital, I know that things with websites, even websites with the Charity Commission, with a big organization like that, can go wrong. And so I decided that we would challenge the decision of the Charity Commission, and with a bit of to and froing, and me saying, look, there must be a glitch in the IT at your end. They accepted it, and our accounts have now been recorded as received in January. So it feels like it's a tiny victory, but actually it has ramifications for me and for grant giving bodies, because as a sitting person who also sits on grant panels, I'm always looking at the Charity Commission website to check if a charity's accounts are up to date, and if they're not, then it's a mark against them. So it's great to be able to record a victory like that, and to know that that's significant and could be significant for other charities.
Good answer. Janet, Michelle, I don't know if you have anything to add to that. Why should someone become a trustee?
I can add a couple of points. Well, I could add loads of points, but I'll add a couple of points. I think there's something really sort of leading on really from what Pauline's just said, but it can be a really interesting experience. And in a way, it's a privilege, you get to take a leadership role and engage at the sort of strategic level of an organization that's doing amazing work. I think that's a real privilege. I asked our digital trustee to come, what one of his main benefits was, and it was quite interesting actually. It hadn't occurred to me, but he's a freelancer, so he has a series of freelance engagements, and what he misses is that sort of long-term developmental role. So he gets that from being a trustee. So I guess people have very different reasons. Maybe that's what I'm trying to say, but yeah, that's what I would add.
Well, and Michelle, have you heard anything from your trustees? What have they said?
About what's good about being a trustee? I think for us, for our trustees, it's about the opportunity to be on a journey together. And I think it was Pauline mentioned before about the need to kind of go to a charity where you've got a passion, or you share the passion for the cause. And so I think when you've got that, then going on that journey alongside the organisation and being able to share your skills and expertise and know that you're making a difference, and that the services or the work that the charity does for the people it's there to serve is better because of the input that you have, is a real privilege. But it's also really exciting. And gives you, I suppose, all those kind of feel good feelings actually. So yeah, it's hard work and there's a lot of responsibility, but especially if it's a cause that you're passionate about, being able to share your expertise and skills in a way that makes the impact for people better is a really nice and exciting thing to do.
Great stuff. I definitely still want to be a digital trustee after that answer, so all good there. Liz asked this question in the chat, but I think she asked it before Janet, you did your piece, so it kind of might have been answered, but asked if there was anywhere they could get a job description template for a digital trustee. I suppose you might have resources like that.
We do have one on our site, which you can use and just download and then adapt. You know, it's a template. There's loads of different ways you can do this, but it's a starting point if you'd find that useful. So it's on our Digital Trustees hub.
Anyone else got any questions? If you anyone want to just actually ask it live? Sasha, can you see anyone? I can't see. Can only see one screen. No? I will hog all of the questions. I might ask one more. I'm trying to pick which one, if I'm allowed. So you can't have one trustee for everything. So there's loads of skills you want in your charity. How do you get to a point where you know what the makeup of a trustee board should look like, and should digital definitely be on every charity board, and why? Big question. Anyone can answer.
I can tell you a little bit about how we did it, if that works. So we did a governance review, and we worked out that our board had a few years ago got to the stage that everybody was kind of connected. So they tended to be, you know, somebody had known somebody who'd brought somebody else, and it was his neighbour or friend. And we worked out that really what we wanted to do was have a board that was representative of the organisation that we are and the communities that we serve. But also we worked through, we did a skills audit and we did a mapping exercise of our strategic plan and worked out what were the bits that we thought were our priorities for the next few years. We're quite a small organisation, so we don't have internal teams for everything. So some of that was about working through what were we missing in the organisation. Some of that was about networks that we didn't have. And so we then went out specifically for that, and we were like, very, very clear that we didn't want a digital trustee, or we didn't want somebody who was just marketing comms. We wanted that kind of mix. But it was, for us, it was understanding where are we going as an organisation, what's our strategy, what's our priorities, and therefore what do we need the board to be knowledgeable about, but also combined with that, what diversity do we want? So one of the things that we specifically went out for was for some new trustees who had no board experience. So of the 5 people we recruited in January, 4 of them have never been on a board before, and that's been fantastic. So we're having to do quite a bit of work around what is the role of a trustee and the difference between being in a governance role and not in a kind of operational role where you get involved. So we're still having to do quite a bit of work around that. But what it's meant is there's a real kind of diversity and freshness of thought, and people are just really engaged and full of energy, and haven't fallen back into that maybe traditional trustee role. So that's been really good for us as well. So for us, I think it's my recommendation would be look at what the charity needs, but also look at the people, because you want both. You want the practical skills, but you also want the right culture mix. I think, like Janet said, it's a team, so you've got to get both.
Great stuff. Anything to add, Janet and Pauline, before we finish up?
What was the question again, Bex? Can you repeat it?
I guess you can't have one of each on your board of every skill that you need ever. So where does digital fit into that? How do you decide?
Well, for me, it's about being creative and finding solutions that are free or open source or low cost, because we just don't have the budgets. And then on the strategic side of things is to work on persuading funders that spending money on digital and tech is a good investment, including for themselves, because believe you me, there's plenty of funders out there that still get stuff posted to them, don't use email, so they need some kind of education and kind of improvement as well. So yeah, but for creativity I think is a key skill, and being adaptable, pivot as Janet said, being able to turn your hand to something else. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, I think I'd kind of very much agree with both Michelle and Pauline. I think you know, you do need to take stock of who's already around your table, what skills and expertise and experience do they have, and what's your community look like, who's your service serve, and where are you trying to go, and then does the board, you know, what are the gaps given all of that. I suppose you'll then end up with loads of things you need. You know, you need diversity, you need specific skills, you need this, you need that, and you're obviously not going to find that all in one person. But if you recruit for 2 or 3 people at the same time, it means that you can be, because one person will bring maybe diversity of experience and a particular skill set. And then, you know, if you recruit 2 or 3 at the same time, you have more ability to sort of cut it up in different ways, if that makes sense. So I think that's one thing that I have heard organizations say is useful. And also it makes it nicer for the trustees who are starting, because they're starting 2 or 3 and they're not just sort of the lone person joining an established team. That can be helpful, especially if they're a little bit different to the people who are already on the board. It can help them feel more included. I think it's hard to prioritize sometimes. It is difficult to work out, I think what I would say is that you don't want a board that's too big, but, most boards, there is not a set number of seats around that table. So actually, if it was Michelle sort of saying that she went out to recruit 2 and ended up with 5 because they were all so great. So, there is also that flexibility. It depends a bit on just who applies at the time, I guess, and how successful your recruitment is. But I think if you go out with a message, I definitely said to charities that I think Michelle really exemplified, is if you go out really positively with a real bang, I think you're likely to get a really great set of candidates, people applying. So it's a matter of going for it, I think, and investing the time and effort.
Thank you so much, Michelle, Pauline and Janet, for giving up your time today. That's been really helpful. I hope everybody else has found it helpful too. So over to you, community announcements. Does anyone want to do 1 minute, 50 seconds, 30 seconds on something that they want to plug or promote or talk about? If it's silent, that's fine. We can all have tea. No, okay. If you change your mind, let me know. We can still do it. You will, Tom. Amazing. Okay, Tom, where are you?
I'm here. Oh, can everyone see me?
Yeah, I can.
Cool. So I am the co-founder of an organization called Disposal, and we've just set up a social enterprise called Your Disposal. So both Disposal and Your Disposal is around waste, helping people understand where their waste goes, how they can get rid of it legally into the right place. And Your Disposal, so our social enterprise, has just won funding from the Open Data Institute to kind of standardize the data that's around household waste recycling centres. So we need people to help us understand what they want to know about their household waste recycling centres. So they're also known as tips, dumps, civic amenity centres. So the problem is I'm from the waste industry, so I call it a household waste recycling centre. Very, very few people call it a household waste recycling centre. So we need to kind of get that commonality of like language about what do people take there, what do they want to know about it, and the more people that are not from my world, the better. And Tech for Good Live seems to be a good place to push that message. That's all I've got.
How can people get in touch with you if you want to?
So we're on Twitter at Your Disposal. There's no I in disposal. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm Tom Passmore from Disposal. No I in disposal. Message me through here. Get in touch with Tech for Good Live. I do volunteering for them. So yeah.
Well, thanks, Tom. See, it's
Okay.
that easy. If you want to do a community announcement, there's still time. No, good. I just want to check. Just want to check everyone's had a chance to say what they need to say. Sasha, are you all right posting these links in the chat? So we've got a Slack, as I mentioned earlier, if you want to come and have a chat to the community of tech people and charities who are all thinking about how to use digital better. We've also got a newsletter we send out monthly, and we have a podcast that goes out weekly talking about, well, we try and talk about tech for good, but we mainly talk about tech for bad because it's more interesting and we like to complain about all the bad stuff in the tech world quite a lot. So keep up to date with us there. Do let us know what you want from our next event on Menti. Let's see how that's getting on. Is anyone? It's looking similar, looking similar. Someone wants an event on water. Who was that? Anyone want, what do you mean by water? No. Oh, Tom, was it you?
It was me. So it's all around resources, I suppose, which is all I already care about. What we've got a massive problem with water and tech for good. How can we understand what is happening to our water, who owns our water, how it gets looked after and stuff like that? I think there will definitely be interesting tech in this field, but I've never heard of it, and tech that's doing good. So I think that'd be interesting.
Yeah, I'm into it. I like it. So yeah, that's what we've got. Feel free to keep adding to that. If you've still got the link, that'll be up for the next hour or so probably. But yeah, keep an eye on our Twitter channel probably and our meetup for the next event. Thank you to everyone joining in. We are done, and you can all go and have your teas or dinners or whatever you like to call it. Thank you very much. See you next time.
Thank you. Bye.